Okay, today I need to talk about polishing, and we have a system set up here in the studio that works really well for us. I do want to say that when you go to other studios that their system might be a little bit different, so you always want to find out and learn how each studio operates. But with polishing, it's can easily get contaminated, and we can end up having nobody with a nice polished surface. So what I want to tell you about is that we have different compounds. And so just like the sandpaper grits, the polishing compounds are grits, and you need to start with one and work your way. So the first one that we're going to be using is Triple E, and we have this box here with buffing wheels for us. And this is the Triple E, this is the compound, and normally I would pass this around in a classroom and have you guys rub your finger on it and see that it's gritty. So this is a oil-based kind of greasy wax that is embedded with some grit that is about, I would say, maybe 220-ish sandpaper or to 400. But what I like to do is I like to have my piece finished to about a 400 sandpaper finish, because then from Triple E it will take off the sandpaper finish 400, but it'll leave some sandpaper scratches from the Triple E. So then after I've done Triple E, I will wash the piece in my hands, put everything away, and I will move to what's called White Diamond. And I use these different compounds because they look different enough that people don't get them mixed up. But this is White Diamond, and when you run your hand over it, you'll feel that it's less gritty. And White Diamond is oftentimes as far up as I go on the polishing system. But White Diamond is the next one in order. And then for a final polish, we have what's called Red Rouge. And Red Rouge, when you rub your finger on it, is smooth and slick. There's really almost no grit in it at all. There are lots of different types of rouges: Red Rouge, Green Rouge, Black Rouge. The Red Rouge works the best, I think, on gold and silver. And so these are the different compounds. We have separate buffing machines here that Erin is pointing to. This one is our Triple E. So I have that. This one's White Diamond, and then Red Rouge. And I really do like people to stay using the compounds in each one of them, because if I get any Triple E on a White Diamond buff, it's now become a Red Rouge, a Triple E buff. Okay, so we need to be really cognizant of it. There is a sign right here that I think is helpful that shows the different polishing compounds and what you need to do in between each one that you're working with. And keeping the lids on the boxes is pretty important. So now that I've talked about the compounds, I want to talk about the buffing wheels. They come in different sizes and shapes. And this one is made out of muslin cloth, and it's pretty soft and flexible. And this will allow you to get down in hills and valleys. So if I wanted to polish this textured piece, I might use this. On the other extreme is this one, which is a felt wheel, and it's hard and it doesn't collapse at all. It's just going to hit the top of the piece and not polish in the low spots. This is a very aggressive wheel. I very rarely use them. I like to prep my metal to 400 sandpaper and then just go with a softer buff. But a lot of people like using those. The other thing you should notice is color difference. This one's obviously been used. These are brand new. They're marked for us so we don't get them mixed up. This one is just muslin cloth stitched together, and a pretty good standard buff to use. This one here has been impregnated with some shellac, and you can tell that it's a lot stiffer. It's going to cut a lot faster. I would not want to use either one of these buffs on my feather earrings because I would wipe out those beautiful scratch marks that are there. So I probably would tend to go to a softer wheel. We also have brushes. These work really well to get down into low spots, hills and valleys. If I'm buffing my fingers, I'll just hit the top spots with the felt wheel, but if I use this wheel, you can see that it can conform and get down into the crevices on there. This also you can put compound on, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. This is one for polishing the inside of like a goblet or something that's there. And then this one, which is brand new, is for polishing the insides of the rings. So you put some compound on this, and this will work on the inside of a ring for you to do the polishing that's there. Okay. The other thing you need to know is size difference. Sometimes that's important. If I have a little cup shape, I need a smaller wheel to fit down in there. If I'm working with a small piece like the peace sign, I'm gonna feel more comfortable using a smaller buff that's on there. So they do come in different sizes. The bigger the buff, the faster the RPMs go. So when I'm talking about polishing, I often think about my astronomy class, about how the planets that are farther away from the sun rotate faster than the ones that are closer in. Same thing with this over here. So I think I'm gonna grab this buff, and I'm gonna come over to polish these. And so some things that you need to know is that we need to vacuum and clean up after ourselves. This buff has a leather center, and you can see that the hole is small here. If I flip it over, you can see the hole's bigger. And what happens a lot is this gets put on backwards, and then this hole gets so big that it just spins on the spindle. So find this bigger hole, come over to the spindle here, and then just thread it on. Okay. And then what you need to know is that there's this switch here, turns the light on, and the vent system. I can polish my fingernails with this. It's not going to hurt me. There are other things we put on these wheels that could be dangerous. But what I want to share with you is that I like to show people how to polish something round, because if I start polishing, I'm doing fine here, but when I get underneath here, I'm going to catch an edge and it's going to throw it against here. Or if I'm up too high, it's going to catch it and it's going to throw it that way. So what I like to show people, and in our handout that is in the canvas, is here's my wheel. I'm going to divide it into 4 sections. And this bottom section between my fingers here and here is what I call the safe zone. So if you stay with your metal between these 2 fingers, you're going to be fine. You probably will lose a piece of metal. What I mean by that is it'll let go, and you'll pick it up, and if you have to straighten it out, we'll straighten it out. But it's a good learning lesson on that. That also brings up another point. You do not want to wear gloves on a buffing machine, and you do not want to polish chain. If you polish chain on this, that chain could get wrapped around this and it could cut your finger off. So we have another way of polishing that I will talk about when we start doing chain making on here. Okay, so I've got my wheel on, and I'm going to grab my compound. I do want to mention, I don't use them, bad me. There are these little fingers to keep your fingers from getting hot, but I just find that they get in my way. So what I like to do is I like to have more than one piece that I need to polish, and when it gets hot I put it down and I pick up the other. The other thing that's in this box is this piece of masonite, and with a piece that's really flimsy, like this might bend, I can polish it and flip it over and do it that way. So this is also another nice tool to have. So I'm going to turn the machine on. I'm going to take some of the compound and I'm going to load the wheel. See, it took a little bit off. What I find is that beginners have a tendency to use way too much compound. You're just going to learn with time what that is and what it isn't. With new buffs, you really have to load them up. When I polish, the first thing I do, this I might keep satin, but I want the edges to be soft. So the first thing I do is I come in and I polish the edges. You notice that I'm not holding it like this. I'm right up here supporting it. I can tell by the sound if I'm doing it correctly. And you can see how the wheel is adjusting to the metal that's going around. That's pretty super shiny. Triple E will not take off file marks. I always prep my metal all the way down to 400 before I come to the polishing machine. So that edge, you notice I keep using my hand because you actually can see better with your hand than you can your eyes. So I'm just coming in perpendicular in the safe zone. And because this is round, I'm wanting it to be curved. I'm doing a lot of movement. So pushing hard enough and using the metal enough. And then you notice I'm getting compound on my hands and on the piece. And I've got a nick here that I'm going to have to fix. Shame on me. Oops. But I'm going to go completely around and get the edge. And once the edge is looking good, I can tell that it's so much better to touch. And then I can also see where my mistakes are that I can fix. Okay. So I might, just for the heck of it, quickly go around this edge from the other side. This piece is starting to get a little hot. But what I'm going to do now, I think, is I'm going to add a little bit more compound. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to start polishing this face. And can you see that that's polishing up? But I've got some drag marks here. So if you've got a scratch or a drag mark, don't polish it in the same direction. You want to go across that drag mark. And I always say that polishing reveals all the faux pas that you need to fix. And I can see that from here, I can fight this and keep polishing it because it is taking those marks out. Or I can go back in with some probably 320 sandpaper and then back to 400 to clean this up. Let me see if I clean this side up any better. Yep, this is the side I sanded down properly. So this is one of my favorite sayings. And I'm not sure who taught me it in all my mentors that I have, but the back is as important as the front, especially with jewelry. When I used to sell jewelry, the first thing somebody would do is pick the piece up and turn it over and look at it on the back. And if it was well made on the back, they would feel a lot more confident about owning it. So don't negate the back being very important. But can you see those? I need to go back in and do some cleanup. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to show you with this guy, cleaning up. This piece I did a few years ago, and it's already been polished on the edges and everything. It just has gotten tarnished with time. So I'm just going back in to kind of clean it back up, and you can see doing pretty good. I've embossed some lines in this, and this polishing compound should not take those lines out. But that should clean that up and starting to look pretty good. Can you see I don't have drag marks there, but I do have a hammer mark there. And just with a little bit of polishing. A little trade secret is the edge of the buff actually cleans the metal better, or does a better job with the removing material. So did you see how I came from the side? And now I've pretty much gotten rid of almost all of that. And then moving in all different directions and rotating gives you a much better surface that's on there. What you're seeing here now are triple E scratches, And those will be taken out after I clean the metal with soap and water, Simply Green, and I go to white diamond on there. Okay. So I think people are always so intrigued about polished metal, but they have no idea what it takes to make something really shiny and beautiful. So another thing I just want to show you is this is a piece of metal brass that's been textured. And so I'm just going to hit the top edge. And I like doing something in a circle because if I go in too far, I'm out of that safe zone. So a circular piece is really nice to buff around. And now it's kind of highlighting the texture that's on there a little bit better. Polished surfaces are beautiful. They aren't always what you want because if you have something that's completely mirrored, you might not be able to see the shape of the piece, the illusion. So when I was in school, everything was a mirrored finish. And I want to say that a variety of things, options are better for finishes that are on there. Okay. So the other thing I want to show you real quick like is I turned the machine off. I slowed it down with my hands. Shame on me. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to put these back in the box. And I want to put on my buff for a ring. And these are wooden. And you always want to put the ring mandrels on this side of the buffing machine. And since this is a new one, I'm having to kind of cut threads with it. And now it's on pretty good. If I put this on over here, it's going to cross thread and then it's not going to stay on. So when you're using these for polishing a ring, I can get a ring off. Oh, I can't. And you're not wearing one of your beautiful rings? Can't get that off. Got it. Spit. Yeah, my fingers are swollen. Too much work. But now when I turn this on, see how it runs pretty true? I'm going to load up. And then I'll use his ring. Slide it on and run it back and forth to polish it. And that cleans up the inside. So when I'm doing rings, I usually polish the inside of the ring. Sometimes I'll run the edge so that it softens it a little bit so it's more comfortable to wear. And then I'll put the other wheel on and polish the outside of it. So this is a piece that somebody wants me to alter, and I'm hesitant about it. But anyway, this is going to be, when we get to our band rings, this is what you're going to be using for finishing the insides of your rings. So sometimes it's hard to get them off. So what I do is I hold here and I just pull forward. There is, if it gets stuck on there and you need help, there's another option that I'll show you guys how to, or Erin will show you how to fix. Okay. So from here, I'm going to put everything back in the box because we don't want to contaminate anything. And then I'm going to take my pieces and just know that we have to really be orderly here. I'm going to come over to the machine here. Thank you, Erin, chasing me around. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take our spray solution, and it has Simply Green and Dawn in it. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to clean my hands. And you can see that it works pretty good. We used to use ammonia, and that was always miserable because I always had cuts on my hands. But the Simply Green and the Dawn work really well. So now my hands are clean. So now I'm going to come in, and these are obviously not done yet, but then I'm going to take a sponge, and I'm going to be smart and use the yellow side of the sponge, not the scratchy part. And I'm going to just run over the surface to get any of the compound off of this. If I use the Scotch-Brite, I'm going to put scratches back into it. So I need to make sure that all of this is cleaned off well before I go on to the white diamond. So you can see pretty good surface that's there. So once again, a little bit of Simply Green, a sponge. This, I might be having some compound down in the spokes, so I'm going to use a toothbrush, a very, very worn out toothbrush. So next time you get yourself a new toothbrush, throw the old one in your toolbox, and I can get that cleaned up. So you can really see the difference. What I really like is contrast, so really the shininess to the matte finish. I may keep the tires matte and everything else shiny, but you can get just some more exciting things when you think about the finishes you're going to put on your piece. And then this one, which has hills and valleys, I'm definitely going to use the toothbrush. To clean it up. And then last but not least, I do just want to mention we have what's called an ultrasonic cleaner, and we can use that for pieces like that have stone settings in them. What I do is I fill up some of the soap and water in here, I put my piece in it, and I put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, and it shakes and gets the compound off of places like down inside prong settings and things like that. So when we get a little bit more involved in stone setting and everything, I'll go back over talking about the ultrasonic cleaner. And then last but not least, if I take this paper towel and I rub it on the surface, I'm going to put scratches back in my piece. So this is why I want you guys to have a hand towel in your kit so that you can use that to dry your pieces. The other reason why I recommend that is as I was repairing a ring for one of the facilities guys at the end of the night, and I got finished polishing it and I cleaned it and I had it in the towel, put it on my desk. When I got cleaned up ready to go home, I shoved all the paper towels into the garbage can, and that cost me about $150. So I'm not fond of using paper towels because of environmentally, but mostly because it's too easy to throw something away with them. So I think that's a good start with the polishing. The system I did on Triple E is going to be exactly the same on White Diamond and Red Rouge. And everybody is just going to need to have an opportunity to polish a piece.